Hey, everybody. Welcome to week 2 of our book club. Hope everybody is having an amazing week. I got some girlfriends and some new girlfriends on, so we're excited that you guys are here. So we're just going to give a minute as you guys are hopping on, put something in the chat and let us know that you're here. And I have a special request. If anybody is real familiar with StreamYard, because we've had an issue streaming straight to Facebook. So we would love to know if anybody, we've tried to do some troubleshooting stuff, but some of y'all know Facebook has changed some things. So where we've always just been able to go straight into the group, it's not letting us go like into the event like it has in the past. So if anybody knows anything about that, but we do have the YouTube, and the good thing about the YouTube is you can like go back and watch it anytime. So if anybody is familiar with StreamYard, that is like our best way, but doing that. So we're going to be posting the YouTube link in there. Okay. Anna Marie, do you see the YouTube link in there? I just want to make sure that is posted in live. Okay. It's in there. So everybody should have that. Yay. Okay, you guys. Awesome. Well, we're in. Well, let me go ahead, and I hope y'all are enjoying the book. I know this week there was like kind of a sad story, but I also am reminded of that there is always purpose in our pain, and it's always, in hindsight when we can look back, right? Like we understand our life. We live it forwards, but we understand it backwards. And so that's a lot of what I thought about during this week. So I'm excited to dive in. And before we kind of dive into the questions, let's go ahead. I want two of my girlfriends that are here, Lisa Duvall and Adrienne Raptis. I'm going to have them introduce themselves. So Lisa, why don't you go first? And girl, I love your hair. Like I have never seen this curly hair of yours.
This is my natural hair. So I am truly a curly girl here. And I fight it and blow it out all the time, but I feel like I kind of look like a mess sometimes with curly hair. So, but I try to embrace it to give myself
a
break. So thank you for noticing. My name is Lisa Duvall, and Amy and I, we've been friends for quite about, 10, 11 years, 15 years, who knows. And so I have 3 kids. My oldest is 29, my daughter in New York. My son is 25 here in Palm Beach County. And then my baby is in college. And so she's doing good and thriving. So James and I are empty nesters and loving that life. And we've been married 32 years. So that's a little bit about me.
Yay. Awesome. Welcome. Welcome. Thanks for being here. All right. Miss Adrienne.
Sorry. Hi, how are you? Hi, everyone. My name is Adrienne Raptis, and Amy and I, we've known each other, I guess, maybe 6 or 7 years, but close friends ever since we met. And I have 2 kids. Athena is 12 and currently homeschooling, which is a new challenge for me. And Ari, actually his name is Aristotle, but we call him Ari, is 8. And wonderful children that I have. I've been married 21 years, and my husband and I have 5 businesses. So I can get into all that, but it's interesting because this book, our businesses are on Worth Avenue, and I shared at the retreat that I put a lot of my worth into those businesses, and God is kind of dealing with me on that and shifting my worth to be more heavenly focused. So we can, but this has been a great book for the crisis that I'm currently going through. So it's wonderful.
Oh, well, I love it. Isn't it great when it's always personal? It's even like in scripture, we can go back and read something and God always finds us and meets us where we are. Like that's what's so amazing about him. Well, awesome. Well, I'm glad you guys that y'all are here. And of course, Tanya and Anna Marie are here again. Woo woo. So good. Well, we have kind of like 3 sections that we're going to dive into. But before we do that, how many of you put in the chat if you saw my message about fasting that we are kicking off tomorrow? So we want to invite everybody. This is not like, this is inclusive. This is not exclusive. You don't have to like be any, it doesn't matter. And I've talked to so many women that are like, Amy, I've never fasted before. And I've had some really cool conversations about fasting. I remember the first time I heard our church, Christ Fellowship, that was collectively fasting. That was the first time I did, but I was like pregnant and then nursing. So it's kind of always like, well, I guess I can't fast, but newsflash, you can actually fast something that's not food, by the way. So it doesn't have to be that. But really just the reason that I wanted to do this was I was at actually a spiritual renewal. And I just at first like felt that God was prompting me to fast for my husband, well, not even fast for my husband, pray for my husband. And then as the night went on, I just felt this more prompting. And I thought about like all of the men and some of the, just situations I knew just with marriages, but not just, doesn't have to be that your marriage, maybe it is hanging on by a thread, right? Or maybe you're not married, but you're like praying for that like godly man to come into your life. Or maybe you just want your man to like step up and to be the spiritual leader in your home, and maybe he's not. Whatever it is, my prayer with this, and I was like journaling, and I think I put like miracles for our men, right? Y'all know I love a good theme. Okay. So miracles for our men. But ultimately, I mean, don't we all want our men to reach their kingdom potential? Right? Like that is really the prayer in my heart behind this. And so I just felt that God had dropped in my spirit, like, Amy, I want you to bring women together, and I think I was telling some of you, and Tanya got all excited when I said the enemy's going to hate this, right? I mean, isn't the enemy going to really hate like women coming together collectively and say, we are praying and fasting for our men? So I just want to invite you guys to do this. We're going to kick it off tomorrow, November 1st. And again, fasting is just giving up something that your flesh wants in order that for something that your soul and your spirit wants even more, right? So we want our men even more. As much as I want to eat all that Halloween candy tomorrow, I'm not going to do it, right? I'm going to eat it all tonight, and then I'm going to fast my sugar tomorrow. So we want to invite you guys in. If you, we're going to do most of our communication accountability. You could just say, Amy, I'm going to fast, and you don't have to communicate with anybody if you want. But if you want to really feel the collectiveness of the group, we do have a refresh prayer group that's on WhatsApp. So if you're not currently on that and you'd like to be, we're going to do that. And Adrienne had a great thing that she found on the Bible app. Can you tell them a little bit about that, Adrienne, just where they can find that? And then I think I posted it in the Facebook group too.
Oh, you did? Okay. So if you have the Bible app, just click on the link and you can join the study that she posted. And it's a 30-day praying for your husband's study. So technically, a few of us started it yesterday because it is 30 days, which is longer than, but you can catch up or do whatever you want. But that way we can all do it together, and you can even write things in there collectively, and it just feels like you're doing it more collectively. So if you have any questions, just you can ask me or whatever.
Perfect. Okay. All right, you guys. So if you're watching live on the YouTube, we'll be able to see your comments. So make sure your comment, we want to make you feel like you're a part of the conversation. And if you have to go back and watch it later, still go back and put your comments in there. I'll go check it out if you're watching it later. And if you watch this and you're like, oh my gosh, Amy, it's November 1 and I'm watching this, you guys already started the fast. That's okay. Jump in. It's okay if you jump in, a day late, no big deal. We want you to get the most out of it for your men. And I am believing great God stories are going to come from this. I just know it. All right. So let's jump in, you guys. This week, we're looking at chapter 3, the dig part, and then the dig in, which has some great discussion stuff, and then chapter 4. So we're going to start on chapter 3, y'all, and let's go ahead and look at page 50. She talked about unmet expectations. This was really, I had to read this a couple times. Did anybody else have to really just go, okay, let me read this again. But what she says on page 50 is the disappointment of unmet expectations can feel like a real loss. Unmet expectations are the loss of something we never experienced in the first place. So just wanted to, what do y'all think about that? And how do you cope with unmet expectations? Oh, Tanya, you're muted. It's okay. I was like, whose mouth is moving?
Ah, thank you. As you go further in that paragraph, she also says, we add a high value to an expectation our minds and bodies can't distinguish between an actual loss and an expectation that was not met. Therefore, we process the unmet expectation as a real loss. And so, like you, I had to kind of reread this, because it really is quite profound, right? To feel almost a tangible loss to something that we didn't lose. It was something that we expected, and it could be so many things. It doesn't have to be even on your spiritual journey. It could just be how you expect somebody else to act, to react, to engage, or whatever. But it's interesting. I I think it takes me back to the first chapter, where I felt like some of the things that she was doing, like when she was handing over that crown, she completely was discombobulated. Which way do I turn? Where's my gown? Where's all this stuff? And so I think so often we operate in emotions more than intellect, and that's very dangerous. And so I think sometimes our unmet expectations are because we are emotionally in a place that we're not using our intellect as well. Not always, but quite often.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. Okay. Say that one part again. We're using our emotions and more than our intellect. Is that how you said it?
Well, our emotions don't have intellect. And so when we're not really balanced in the way that we're approaching a situation, or reacting or whatever, if we're operating purely in emotion, there's no intellect in that. And so decision making, all of that just tends to be hypersensitive quite often.
Yeah. I love it. All right. Anybody else have thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think of expectations in two ways. A little bit like what Tanya said there. Sometimes I have expectations of God, and she talks about that as she goes on with unanswered prayers. I have an expectation certain things are going to happen, and I'm praying for them, and they don't come through. And then I have expectations relationally with people, and I think coping with them, actually, I would say, is the same way, as it's verbalizing. And most of the time, my expectations of people are unstated. They're just things that I expect. And I think people are going to read my mind and have coded information that, yes, not there. So close relationships, I may actually say, in the season, what I need is, or is this a reasonable expectation, of our relationship, or, but I verbalize. And then with God, the same is true. When prayers aren't answered, I verbalize with him, and which is praying of expressing disappointment, writing that out, of going, I did pray for this. And, if anyone's been to Refresh or have listened to any of these calls, that I didn't have the opportunity to know my biological dad, and he died before I was able to. That was a prayer that I really prayed for many years, that I would get to meet him. And so that prayer wasn't answered the way I want. And I have become comfortable in my life that some of the prayers that I prayed for, so their expectation, there's really nothing wrong to expect to meet your dad, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but dealing with that is a lot of prayer, a lot of journaling. So either way, it's verbalizing it to our friends or family, or to God.
Well, and Lisa, as you were just saying that, to me, what I thought about is just the maturity of your spiritual walk, right? That you can have peace about that, right? And so somebody else may not be quite there yet, so they're still could be upset by that, and like you said, there's nothing wrong. Like, we want to anticipate, right? We want to wake up and believe today's going to be an amazing day. Like, God, you're going to use me, and like, God, a breakthrough is going to happen, or this could be the day that I can meet that, my biological dad, right? Like, we want to have that, but we also can be content with whatever his will is, because we know his will is the best, even though we don't understand.
Yeah.
All right. Great. All right, let's go to page 56 and 57. It says, Scripture is clear that we were created in love, by love, and for love. So we know that time is the biggest excuse to not reach out and show more love to people, right? We're so busy. So what can you do? I just thought, let's get real practical with these 40 seconds. Like, what could we do, y'all, with 40 seconds to be intentional with someone who's hurting, or maybe they just need some love, right? God puts you on God puts them on your heart. So put it in the chat too. I'd love to hear from you guys. So what did y'all think about that? What's something you could do in 40 seconds? All right, well, I'll go. I just put act immediately, right? I thought about that saying where it's like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Like by the time we literally think about what we're gonna do, or even like this happened to me this week. I literally had a thought. I was gonna go write it down in my calendar, my to-do list, and I'm like, seriously. And I was like, no, I'm gonna just do it right there in the moment. So sometimes, and I know we can't always do that, but y'all, sometimes we can. Sometimes we're like standing in the line, or as we're walking literally to the bathroom from one room to the next, we could do a voice text, we could do something. So I just think in the moment more, think of that person and just do it. Don't think, just act.
Yeah. You guys know I for 35 years, I was a professional nanny. And one of the children one year received a card from a grandmother and there was no money in it. So he's shaking it, trying to get some money out. There's no money. And he was disappointed. I mean, he was 6 years old and he was, visibly and verbally disappointed. And I had to share with him, buy that card, write in that card, put a stamp on it, walk it to the mailbox. And every step of the way, she thought of you. And so I always think that's such an easy thing. We could keep no cards in the house. We put stamps in our home. And so it could take 40 seconds to literally write out a card, just thinking of you if you're having a whatever, and you're putting it in the mailbox. And it could truly take you 40 seconds.
So
or even easier than that is a text. Like, how many times do you think of somebody and you say, oh, I'll have to text them. Oh, I'll do it later. No, just the phone is in your hand. Go and look and just write them a text. Hey, I'm thinking about you. I just want you to know that I miss you. I just want you to know that I was thinking about you. Even if you don't know what to say, because sometimes I feel like we think we need to know what to say in that moment. And all we really want to say is, I miss you. And I was thinking about you.
Yeah.
You know? And just little moments like that, you never know how they're going to affect someone in where that's going to live in their heart that day, And I think about my children, they have no notion of time, right? Our kids have no notion of time. Like, you're always like, come on, we're going to be late. And they're like, la, la, la. Like,
Right.
And I think sometimes we need to be more like them, because the other day we were walking to Home Depot and I'm trying to get all the stuff for the remodel and I'm trying to go as fast as I can because the workers are home and whatever. And my son stops and I look around, I'm like, where is he? He's helping an older man get out of his car who is stuck with the walker and he can't get out. And so my son is like helping him get out and walking him over to the walker. And I'm just like, oh, I need to be more like him. Like, it's not important that, like, sometimes we just need to stop and think, this is more important. And the man was like, oh my God, he's so sweet. God bless him. And that made his day.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah.
So fun. Yeah. I love that you talked about that. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be long. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Like, sometimes we're like, oh, what are the perfect words? And yeah, I think that does stop it. That's a great point. Okay, let's go to the next question. Okay, page 59. Where can you look back and see that God was working in your suffering or understanding? This was a good one. What'd y'all come up with this?
This one is the one that hit me probably the hardest this week. This was my, like, oh my gosh. I have a brother. I shared this last week of my daughter and all her special needs and all the things that she has, but I also have a brother who has special needs. And growing up, he wasn't the easiest person to deal with. And my parents had a lot on their plate. They were from another country and they had children here and they didn't speak the language sometimes. And they were happy that we were okay, right? And so they put all their energy into this one brother that I have. And when she talks about how when her sister was sick, she just tried to take it all in to not be a burden to her parents. In the book, that was something that I realized, like, that's exactly what I did. I took everything on and I learned how to figure everything out and I learned how to mask my emotions. But mainly I learned how to figure it all out on my own. you know. And as my brother grew and he got diagnosed with more stuff, like now he's schizophrenic and he's bipolar, and my parents got older because they did have me later in life, and now they're in their 80s, so they're tired, you know. And having an adult with child with special needs at that age is really hard. I've had to take on most of his care, but I've had to figure it out, you know. And he used to feel like such a burden to me, right? Because I'm human, and that's just the reality. I love him. It was a lot with my own family. But I realize now that God was preparing me. He was using my brother to prepare me for my daughter and to figure things out, and not to accept what some of the doctors were telling me, you know, and say, no, this is not going to be her life, because I've seen people change and I've seen my brother change, and that's not going to be her life. And I believe in a God that heals, and I believe in a God that changes people. And that's not my reality, you know. And I don't think that if I had gone through that with my brother, I wouldn't have that stamina or that toughness to deal with everything that I have now, you know. And he's gone from a burden to the biggest blessing. Like, he loves my children. He calls them every day. He, you know, and God has redeemed him, because I feel like, because I see him as a blessing now, like, because he's not a burden to me, because I see the value in him, you know. It was just like a full circle, like, Lord, you're so good for me.
I love that. That's amazing. That's amazing. And I love that you can share it now. You're, you know, on the other side to see that. That gives so much hope, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that is amazing. You know, one of the things that Demi talks about, she says on page 59, my little sister introduced me to my husband, so she gets full credit as our little matchmaker. But then in the following paragraph, she says, while I may not fully understand why my little sister was born severely disabled, believe me, it's one of the first things I will ask God when I'm face to face with him. And I just want to say, it won't be. When we stand before holy God, we will be praising him. We will maybe even be casting our crowns down before his feet. And I think that anything that we might, where there's holes in what we're thinking, this side of heaven, either he's going to fully answer, or we're going to be so busy praising his name. And also, Franya will be completely whole. When she sees her again, she will not be with that 3-month-old mindset or the disabled body. She will be made whole. And then lastly, because like she said, one of the things, the many ways that Franya's life was a blessing to the family, and even bringing her and Tim together. If you look at Demi's platform and Tim's platform and what God has done with them together, magnifying, multiplying their platform for his glory and for his good, we can see the purpose of her life. And so I just I wanted to say that, because I think we think we're going to stand before holy God and give him kind of the what for. And I don't believe that's true. I think scripture actually says differently.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you for that point of view, Tanya. And Irina had said, this is true. So true, Anna Mari, great advice. Dale Bale is so special. And Cindy said, Jesus never rushed through his day. Love it. Love it. Okay. Anybody else on that? I know that was a good one. All right. So what were y'all's key takeaway from this chapter? Oh, I didn't want to share. I didn't want to share that one. Okay. Hold on. Let me back up. All right. On that first question, one of the things that I'm really grateful that God doesn't always give me what I want.
Right.
Like, looking back, that there's so many times, honestly, I was frustrated and I didn't understand. I'm like, God, I've prayed, I've done this, whatever, you know, but really now I can see the fruit. It's produced that perseverance. And ultimately, now that I've matured in my faith, understanding that actually perseverance and having that in me and that fruit is actually better than that thing that I actually wanted, right? I could have never had that perspective. I wasn't spiritually mature enough to get it at the time, but to also know like how much I have learned to rely on God instead of relying on Amy. and just the more intimate ways I would have never experienced with him that I have, so I love that. All right. So key takeaways from this chapter, ladies.
For me, God's ways are not our ways. His thoughts are higher than ours. And he is God and he is good, even in the things that might leave us with questions that we don't understand. When we walk with him, we can see his fingerprints everywhere.
Yeah. Beautiful.
I would just say trust, which I think builds off of what you're saying. We can trust God. Even when we don't understand, we can trust him. And I see him showing up for me in other places. I know he's going to do it again in the situation I'm in right now.
Good.
I think one thing that it's not necessarily in here, but she, her analogy is like the seed digging, the fruit that's produced. And sometimes I think it's like when something horrible happens, or like, I think of it as like death, right? Like, when you have a fruit, it's like, and the seed goes into that ground, it's like the death of that fruit or whatever it might be. But guess what happens? An abundance of fruit can come from all those dead things. And I think that that's part of, she didn't necessarily touch on that, but it's like, I kind of got that from what she talked about just in general, was all these things that may not seem like good things. They may seem like death, can actually produce a whole abundance of fruit later on if then you do that work, which she'll get into. But so
yeah, thank you. I love hearing like everyone's different perspectives, how we are taking it. All right, let's go to the dig in your own life. And I just want to encourage all of you, if you didn't like really get to spend time in here, don't rush through this part. This is really how you can make it an applicable to you and like what you're going to apply to your life. So let's start on page 65. What do you do when your life spins out of control? You feel overwhelmed, because it is a choice, right? By unanswered prayers. What are your coping mechanisms that you're going to rely on?
One word: bacon. I'm joking.
Cookies. Okay, I can play that game. Okay.
I think I try to control things, and like when things are like spinning out of control, I try to control things. And so part of something that I'm learning to do is just, let go. I mean, that's the second question, but let go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let go. It's not easy, is it, Adrienne? Yep.
I tend to, which is one that's sometimes not recognized as a coping mechanism, but I go out and try to ignore everything that's happening to me, and I try to help another person. And it's good. You would think, oh, that's a good thing, but then my husband looks at me and he's like, "You have so many things. What are you doing? Stop trying to avoid this." By like, I know I'm so happy, but it is a way of coping. Is trying to forget and going to help others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think Jesus would want that. Yeah. Okay. What are 2 practical things you can do today to start shifting your focus off of the things and people and actively put your trust in God instead?
I put slow down long enough, because sometimes when I get overwhelmed by things, I start getting busy and start cluttering my life. And it's just, for me, I have to just slow down, give myself some space so that I can actually, which is my second one, is look where God is actually working. And spend time like thanking him for those things, of going, I acknowledge that, because sometimes when we're overwhelmed, all we can see is all the things that aren't going well. And my mind can start sorting and trying to get busy and fix it and strategize. And it's just like, slow down, see what God's already doing, and just shift into some gratitude. It's really difficult to do, but it actually is a catalyst to pop out of that space.
That's some good wisdom. That's some wise counsel right there, Lisa. I love it. For me, I really think I have to redirect my thoughts, really kind of like think about what I'm thinking about and kind of assess that. because what's that saying? Our energy flows where our attention goes, right? And so if I'm like fixated on the thing in front of me or my own selfish desires or like what I want versus just really like redirecting my thoughts and like fixing it on him and just ultimately, what he wants. All right. What about on page 66? At times, waiting on God can seem like wasting. I'm sure we've all been there, but he never calls us to a season of doing nothing. So this is all about how do we wait well? So what are some ways you can show God your willingness to work in the waiting? So I said to put 3 ways, but we'll just maybe share, of a few of us share one of ours.
Amy, you and I've talked about this, that the wait is never, it's proactive, right? It's never idle. And so for me in the wait, it's still being faithful in church and being faithful in my prayer life and being faithful in my worship. And I have watched him move in ways that I would have never seen because I just continue focusing on him and glorifying him, even in the wait. And it is amazing what he does and how he shows up.
Yes. Amen.
For me, I will ask God to use me. Like I will get to the point of like, just use me so that I mean, because when you're waiting that way, it almost feels like you're waiting in every aspect of your life when you're waiting there. Like you kind of feel stuck. Like your phone needs an update, but you have no bandwidth. Like you have no memory. So just use me in this time. Like I don't want to sit. Like I don't want to be idle. And so I'll ask him to use me, and he'll reveal all kinds of little pockets I can be used in, whether it's, help a friend or walk my kid through something or mentor someone. He'll always bring someone or something in my life that I can, do in the waiting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. He doesn't want to hide it from us, right? He will tell us if we'll slow down enough, like Lisa said, to like actually hear what his direction is. And I think also, isn't it doing what he showed us last?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we're wanting something so much like, God, what's next? What's next? And he's like, I've already showed you. Like, I just want you to stay and do what was the last thing, I showed you, and be faithful in this season. And I think that when we want, I know I want the fruit in my life, but anywhere that we see fruit, we have first had to have faith. Isn't that so true? Like we can't have the fruit without first having the faith to have that. All right, so let's go to page 67. What confidence swap challenge do you need to trade, and why does this resonate with you? If y'all see those little categories on page 67, if you're in the book.
Yeah. I love, even at the refresh retreat, when I had someone whisper in my ear, you can do this. You got this. That's my favorite phrase of like, you got this. So, but the trade I would do isn't around that. I can't do this to, I can be strong and courageous because God is within me. That's the trade I would do. I love that.
Awesome.
I think I'm in a season right now where I'm kind of like, I don't know what to do. And I'm waiting and asking the Lord what to do. And, this was just perfect. The Lord will perfect everything that concerns me in his own timing. And I think that part of that is just knowing that, like, I do not have to make a decision today about whatever, X, Y, Z, unless God directs me in that decision, and I can just wait every single day because his timing is perfect. I don't have to rush things or like be anxious about anything if I'm putting it in his timing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such a great verse, right? I mean, I love that Psalm. Can always go back because we want things and we want it now, don't we, ladies? Good. Anybody else on that one?
Yeah, mine was, I'm afraid. Yeah, I'm afraid. And then the scripture is Deuteronomy 31:6. God is always with me. He will never leave or forsake me. And it's so funny because so often where I find fear is the places that he's taking me. So it's like, don't be afraid because he's going to be with you. I'm like, oh, yeah, you're taking me here. And so a lot of times it's in ministry or speaking, which, I'm the person that as soon as the microphone hits my hand, I can't hear anymore, rapid heartbeat, the room gets to spinning. But I learned that if he calls me to it, I'm going to do it. So if I'm scared, then do it scared because he is with me.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have to remind myself often.
Yeah. He is always with us. Okay. I would love for one of y'all to read the prayer before we move on to the section 2 on the bottom of page 67. Will one of y'all read that?
I will.
Okay. Thanks.
I love you, God. Right now, I can't see how the situation will work together for good, but I trust it will. Show me how to show up with compassion for others, even when I don't feel like it. Make it clear to me where your silver lining is around this dark cloud hanging over my life. Remind me that I'm part of your perfect story and that you have never and will never fail me. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Adrienne. I love this, Cindy. Cindy, this is so cool. So she said she had the blessing of doing the makeup for the special needs teens for Tim Tebow for his night to shine. Have y'all ever seen that? So Cindy, did you get to be there? That's amazing. That's amazing. So just a little fun little side note. So some of y'all know I'm looking at a new venue for the retreat that I talked about on Sunday. And the place that I visited that it's like the front runner. He told me that actually Tim Tebow does a lot of his charitable events there for this. And now we're reading this. It's like a little God wink, I feel like, right? So cool. All right, so let's go on to part 2 of the book. Now we're moving into, we've been digging it, right? Digging it up. And now we're moving to planting. The verse kind of for this section is Psalm 34, 4-5. I sought the Lord and he answered me and rescued me from all my fears. Those who look to him are radiant with joy. Their faces will never be ashamed. I love that song. I sought the Lord and he answered. I think we listened to that recently on a prayer call or something. All right, so let's jump into chapter 4. Every step back is a setup for a step up. Who wants a step up, right, ladies? We want a step up. Okay, so we're going to start. This is, and I just put on the notes there, the setback is your setup for your success story. Isn't that we all have a success story? I want us all to believe that, like God is writing our success story right now for all of us, not for some of us, but he has it for all of us. So let's start here on page 78. Succeeding the first time is very rare. When is the time you didn't give up and you put your big girl panties on? I got to do this. Y'all, hang on.
No. Oh, no.
It's not big girl panties. Don't worry. It's not big girl panties. But look, so I cleaned out I had a friend come over yesterday and we opened the bins. She goes, Amy, have these bins been sitting here for 4 years since you've moved in? I said, yes. Yes, they have. So it was really fun going through bins I haven't seen in 4 years. But this was one of my favorite signs that was up in my old office. It says, just put on your big girl panties and get over it. So yeah, let's do this. Okay. So when is the time you didn't give up, put your big girl panties on, took a risk, and saw the reward? And what was your biggest lesson you learned?
I'm very glad that you didn't go get big girl panties.
I know. Could you hear me? Some of y'all thought I was going to like do a full on.
I was like, I hope she doesn't, but I kind of want to see it. I don't know. Something was weird.
Our book club is about to go viral.
That's right. I think of just a practical, I wanted to run a half marathon and I was like, I am not a run. It's just not who I am. I know you look at me and go, you look like a runner, Lisa. You really do. But I was like, I'm going to do this. And so I trained for it. And my goal is I'm not going to walk. I'm just going to run. I didn't have a pace. I just said, I'm not going to finish it in however many minutes. But I did it. And it was such an accomplishment physically that I actually did it. I didn't walk. I ran the whole thing. And I had some obstacles that came along that don't need to be talked about here. But anyway, they were obstacles that I pressed through. And so I have that physical push I know I could do that more in my physical body, but I think it's true. And whether it's our calling, vocation, relationships, or whatever it is, emotional stress, that when we push through those things, it's just a great, it was a setup that I'm like, I can do more.
I love that. I can do more, right? Once we did that one thing. Yeah, it always reminds us. I love that. Who else?
For me, in around like 2020, 2021, I started having a lot of like health issues where I gained a lot of weight. And I kept going to specialist after specialist, and they kept telling me all the things that were wrong and all the things. And I was just really tired. I was exhausted from, all the years I mistreated my body. Um, and I was in a lot of pain, and it took me 3 years, six specialists, and I was like, God. But every time I would go, I'm like, it was just like, this is not it. This is not it. Like, there's nothing wrong with you. This is not it. No, there's nothing wrong with you. We can't tell you what's wrong. We can't tell you what's wrong. And I was like, I'm not meant to feel this way. I can't, like, be tired all the time. I'm angry all the time because I'm so tired, because I'm in such pain. And I was like, God, wherever you want me to go, just tell me where you want me to go. It was just a lot of prayer, like, just open the doors. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to do this on my own. And when I finally was like, just take me there. And I found a doctor that, completely changed things in my diet that I was eating that I thought were healthy, like pineapples and avocados, who knew were killing me. And like, just for my body, they didn't work. And I was like, okay, so why all of this for 4 years where I was like really struggling? And then I started sharing my story with women, and they were like, me too, me too, me too. And now a lot of them have gone to that doctor, and a lot of them have, have healed themselves too. And I started thinking, like, well, that was, you were setting me up. Like, I didn't stop. I didn't, like, I asked you, like, I had to struggle with that, where it made it so important, like, that I be present for my children, that I not be angry, that I not, want to lash out at my husband for absolutely no reason, just all these things I was feeling, so that I could go find the root and then share this with everyone else, so that they too can be healed,
Yeah.
So,
He took you on a journey.
yeah.
But you were the one that was willing to, like, fight for it,
Yeah.
figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, I think about, again, what I said at the beginning, like, you understand things backwards, right? Like, we live it forward, understand it backwards. And some of y'all have used the word to describe me to being like tenacious. And, I think about where that came from for me. And it's like, nothing that I tried for the first time ever, I never succeeded. I remember running for, a student government thing in high school, and I didn't win the first election that I ran for, trying out for dance team, didn't make it the first year. But, by the end, I had to humble myself, retry out, rerun. And I'm so grateful that I did. And I think back to I ended up becoming president of my high school, and that was when I learned the leadership gift that God had put inside of me, and had I not humbled myself, because I was like, oh, I did that. So, always know that, like, it rarely does happen. And it breaks my heart, because how many of us are missing our God-given potential, or that success story, because we give up too quick, we give up too soon. So let's go on to page 79 and 81. Do you have a comeback story where the challenge initiated the change, or is there a comeback story of someone else that's inspired you? Like Demi talked about the Olympic swimmer, Natalie, or her parents or her pastor. So does anybody have something that came to mind for yourself or someone else?
I had a college kiddo that just sent me a testimony of a guy named Johnny Chang, and it was so powerful. So this is a guy, joined a gang at 13, in like a Chinese American gang. And, he's in jail by 13, like in juvie. He gets out after, I think, 3 years. Within a few months, does another crime. He's back in jail for all these years. Brother's in jail. Dad's an alcoholic. And his testimony is so powerful. And he's now a pastor. He is all tattooed up. I mean, even a couple on his face, but like his neck, he's got the sleeves. He's got the testimony that goes with all of it. But it is so powerful how the Lord pursued him and saved him and used a pastor to speak into his life. But I recently heard this story. I'm now following. It's so weird. I just recently got on Instagram, and now I'm following a couple of people that are inspiring me. I used to hear people talk about following people. I'm like, I'll never follow somebody. Well, I'm following Johnny Chang. So, but every day he does a video, and and some of it's live where he's got an audience and they're asking him questions. And, going back to faith, I heard it recently said that our God is as big as your faith being lived out in your heart and your mind. So we can have a very small God if, our faith isn't really there. And so I look at Pastor Johnny and his faith and how he answers. It's just such a big faith because he has a very big God.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Go
ahead, Anne-Marie.
Oh, no, for me, a testimony of somebody that inspires me is my dad. Like, my dad was a political prisoner in Cuba for 20 years. And then when he was released in 1979, he married my brother's mom. And then he got to this country and found out that she was pregnant and that she also had breast cancer. So now he was in a new country. She carried my brother for 7 months, and then they had a C-section, and then she went through chemo and all of that, but she lived till he was 19 months old. So now here he was in prison for 20 years, came to this country, is now in a new country, is now a widow, has a son, knows nobody here. And then except for his wife and his mother-in-law, who then happens to die a month after the daughter. And then, he finds my mom, and my mom, always says she fell in love with my brother before she fell in love with my dad. And they married, but he could be the angriest person if he wanted to. But he lights up a room. He's happy. He's grateful to God for everything that he is the most grateful human being that I know. And everything is a blessing. Everything is a time to be grateful. Everything is stuff happens, and we gotta, we'll figure it out with God. And, and he's just such a light. He'll be 87 now in November. And he just, I don't know. I look at him and I'm like, you're amazing.
Wow. What a story.
Yeah.
Amazing. What a blessing for you to get to experience that and see that and have learned from that and live that. That's amazing. Amazing. I love on page 82 that she talks about the stories that inspire us are not because they have the best resources or qualifications. It was their sheer determination that helped them get back up again. And sometimes we can get in our pity parties, can't we? Right. And think like, oh, because they had this or that. So I love that little reminder. So let's, between page 82 and 87, they talk about these 5 blocks of belief. So I want us to identify the one that we most resonate with and why. So, and what's our plan to overcome it, right? We just don't want to recognize it. We want to go, okay, how can we overcome this block? So which one did y'all most resonate with?
Mine was the 5th one. We lack belief. And she says, whether you believe that you can, this was a quote from Henry Ford, whether you believe that you can or whether you believe that you can't, you're right. And I've heard that before, and it is so powerful. And so much of the battle is in our mind with most things. But I heard a quote the other day from a pastor saying, if the tomb is empty, anything is possible. So I love that. That's in the book. That's in the book. Sorry, I was like, where? I put
Where
it
did
in
I
my.
hear that? I know that happens, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When we're pouring into ourselves and learning
Yes.
and growing.
But when we lack belief, we inadvertently make God small. And so
Yeah,
it's just so good. I love that whole part.
good. Somebody else want to share one of their blocks?
I can sometimes indulge in self-pity, just, blaming it's somebody else's fault that whatever situation I'm going through. And I'm learning that, for example, I control how other people treat me, whatever. I know this is a Christian thing. And well, there was this quote that my friend sent me the other day, was like, if you are, frustrated with the road you're on, it's your own asphalt.
Yep.
So, but it's a good reminder that whatever road that you're on, that's the road that you're on, and not to blame. You can choose to take another path. And so that's something that I'm choosing.
That's good.
I love it. It's good. It's good to remember that, right? Well, mine was number 4. We fear more failure or the future failure. And trying to remember where yeah, I think it's just, again, trusting in God's timing is kind of what I'm learning from that. And just having the obedience, and I think a lot of times, when we've tried something and we've experienced setback or disappointment, it's just harder to go back and put yourself back out there and go, do I want to take this risk? Do I want to go back and have the potential to fail? Because every time we do put ourselves out there or try or do anything, there is a potential to fail or not turn out, right? So on that. What about these mental roadblocks that will help you? She talked about God's blessings, and while we're surprised, if we're praying, we should be expecting. So is there anything from these mental blocks that you kind of took away that you feel like is going to help you move forward?
I think they all give language to our natural inclination. I'm sure I can identify with all of these in different seasons for different reasons. So I love them because I think it just gives us language to go where I'm in stress or I'm in a storm. How am I respond? Am I indulging in self-pity? Am I, so I love that because to me, awareness is the beginning of change. When you're able to give language to something, then you're like, snap, I'm in the middle of this self-pity and or I'm fearful of the future, whatever the case may be. But I loved it. I think it's very helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. Well, let's jump to the page 93, our wrap up, or the key takeaway. So if you want to pick one of those, either how will you believe more in your possibility for a comeback, or if you have a key takeaway from this chapter that we didn't talk about yet.
I loved on page 90. She says, God possesses complete knowledge of your imperfections, mistakes, emotions, and struggles, as well as what awaits you in the days to come. The Bible says that you were born. God knew all of your future. Quote, your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in this book before one of them came to be. And that's Psalms 139. And, that applies to all of us. But it reminded me of her sister, Franya, too. Like he knew her all of her days. And Anamari's brother. I mean, so all of those. And I think the Tim Tebow, when he does those nights, what is it called? Is it a night to remember?
Yeah, it's like a prom night for disabled children. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And, that we're all image bearers of God and created for a purpose, but so often we put limitations on what that is on other people. But even when my mom had dementia in the last few months of her life, she was under hospice care. And one of the people that came in to see her was a pastor. And I always asked that when hospice saw my mom, even if I saw her that day, that they would call me, whether it was, the doctor, the pastor, whatever. And the pastor called me one morning and said, when I see your mom's name on my list of people I'm going to visit. He said, I get so excited. I cannot tell you how much I love seeing your mom. And it just, she at that time was nonverbal. She's in a wheelchair, but she added to his life. She was a blessing to him. And it just goes to show you, that God says when we're called home, but we have value. We have value, not in what we see, but in what God says.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that verse, that Psalm. So good. So many good verses in Psalm that she had in these chapters.
Yes.
My takeaway, of this chapter is just like live fully, just live fully. But to do that, it takes space for reflection, intentionality and honesty, and like reshaping along the way. But yeah, I think it encourages us to take evaluation of where we are and where we're going, and that we have more in us.
Mm-hmm. Yay. Thank you. Explanation point. I love it.
Makes me think of We're the Clay, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think, something I shared before too is, that she's talked about like how, everyone loves a good comeback story. And something my son was sharing with, he's only 8, but he was like, Mommy, if nothing bad ever happened, this story would be boring, And so like, that's true. Like in our lives, if we look at it that way, God is creating an interest, maybe it's not this perfect, road, but what good story is just, has this like, oh, everything was easy and everything was perfect, the end, so God is like doing something by having this, maybe these setbacks. And I kind of like look at it as like God's, when we dance with him, we maybe step back and then we go towards him, and we step back and we go towards him. And that's kind of like what he's teaching us. It's not like everything's linear. It's this dance that he's trying to create, and he's trying to lead us. And he's our true husband, and he's wanting us to follow his steps. And sometimes it's back and sometimes it's front, but it's beautiful if you listen, if you follow him.
Yeah, you always have such good examples. I love it. Yeah,
and I like to go pick up my son. So
letting him lead, right? We have to let him lead. Sometimes we want to take the lead. We want to be in the driver's seat. I loved in page 91, just at the end, we'll wrap up with this. God will equip you for where he has called you. In the meantime, embrace your middle zone by stepping up in obedience and acting on what you're called to do. You can do hard things, not because of your abilities, but because you serve a limitless God who multiplies the little we have to offer him to feed thousands. So I don't know if y'all can y'all see my bumblebee right there? I mean, see him like right there. So, if you don't know the story about the bumblebee, but it's ignorant of its limitations because it has paper thin wings and the body weight is so heavy. So I love that reminder that we can be ignorant of our limitations when God is leading us. So, well, one of you close us out with the poem on page 92 and read that for us. Anna Marie, you want to do it?
Okay. My setbacks, my failures, or the times I've fallen short do not define my destiny. They will not get the final say. God created me for so much more. I believe it because I've seen it. God placed a dream in my heart, and I will not give up until I experience victory. Victory God's way. My setbacks are just setups for my ultimate comeback. And to those of you watching, buckle up, take a seat, and take notes. I was made for such a time as this.
Yay! Thank you. And thank you, Alicia and Tammy and Cindy, all your comments. Great to see you. Amazing ladies. I'm glad y'all are enjoying it. Tammy said this is so good and love it, Cindy. We will move the direction of our most dominant thoughts. And I just wanted to share our winner of our Starbucks gift card was Michelle Smith. So yay, Michelle. Congratulations. Thank you for sharing and inviting ladies to be a part of the book club. And Diane, this week, you were also sharing a lot and inviting a lot of people. So thank you for that. Continue to invite your friends. Again, if anybody knows any tips about StreamYard, that's why it's not showing up in the Facebook group. But thank you for watching and rewatching. And next week, we will be wrapping up part 2. So read chapter 5 and plant in your own life, and we'll be discussing that. So thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Anna Marie. And thank you, Adrian. It was great being with y'all today. Have an amazing rest of your day. Bye, everybody.